Chapter 1 The sun is sunny and the snow is covered. When I was very young, Wan Niang told me that the most noble woman in the world was the queen, and the palace where the queen lived was called Cunning Palace. I asked Wan Niang, what is Cunning Palace like? Wan Niang said that she didn't know either. I sat under the leaky roof of the countryside, and I thought, how great would it be if I could turn into a wild goose flying in the sky, fly to the prosperous Jingxi, fly to the Forbidden City, and see what Cunning Palace is like. The palace gate is closed, with only a window on the left half open. The sky was overcast and dimly lit. In the lively Cunning Palace in the past, not a single palace person can see it at this moment. Only Zhang Xuning knelt in front of the desk, holding the incense chopsticks with her white and slender fingers, and gently stirred in the Rongjinbo mountain furnace at the end of the case. The silky smoke floated up leisurely from the pores, and her gold-rusted phoenix clothes were spread out behind her for a long time, and the complex cloud patterns were faintly swimming in the darkness with a little light. Later, I really went to Jingxi. God played a big joke on me, gave me a delusional heart that I shouldn't have, but let me grow up in the countryside and fields, and didn't raise the bearing of a famous lady and a lady in Beijing, and put me in this prosperous place and fighting field, and only gave me a good skin. Zhang Xuaning's appearance is extremely bright, like a hibiscus. Moth eyebrows tactful, the tails of the eyes slightly raised, sandalwood lips point zu, is a natural charm, and because of these years in charge of the Phoenix Seal, in a high position, raised 3 points of rare grace and dignity. Lowering the eyebrows and closing the eyes can make people's hearts flutter. Yu Fangyan stood quietly behind her for a long time, listening to her voice like dust and smoke, thinking of her life in the eyes of the world, striving for fame and fortune, and suddenly became a little trance. But a sorrow arose from my heart. They all knew that she couldn't escape. Zhang Xuaning suddenly smiled. Fang Yin, during this time, I always wondered, am I really wrong? When she was a child, she was raised by Wan Niang. She didn't know her life experience. She was wild in the idyllic landscape outside Zhuangzi. She was a bird that no one could control, and only Wan Niang's rouge gouache could let her go home. Wan Niang was born a thin horse and is a woman among women. She said that the world is the world of men, and only men can conquer it, and women, if they only conquer men, they will also conquer the world. After returning to Beijing, she met the little Marquis Yan Lin of the Yanji Marquis Mansion, who took her to disguise herself as a man and play around in the capital. Even her father and mother did not dare to discipline her too much, which was quite a bit of a bamboo horse and a green plum. Later, the Marquis of Yanji was implicated in the rebellion of King Pingnan. Yan Lin's family was exiled for thousands of miles. The young man who had not yet reached the crown came to her by climbing over the high wall of Zhang Mansion at night, and his voice was hoarse, and he held her hand hard. Ning Ning, wait for me, I will definitely come back to marry you. Zhang Xuaning said to him, I want to marry Shenju, I want to be the queen. I still remember that Yan Lin when she was a teenager looked at her with a conical gaze, like a struggling trapped beast, with red eyes and clenched teeth. That night the boy faded from all youth, let go of her hand, and turned away into the darkness. 5 years later, she was already Shenju's queen. The road to the back seat was not so smooth, so in her short life, there were still many people like Yan Lin. For example, Xiao Dingfei, the servant of the ministry. For example, Jin Yiwei commanded Zhou Yinzi. Even, it was Shen Zai, the eldest princess of Liang, who died later. It's just that no one thought that the former teenagers would make a comeback one day. After making military exploits at the border pass, Yan Lin surrendered to Xie Wei, under the banner of King Jun's side, returned in armor, led the army to besiege the capital, controlled the entire Forbidden City, and put her under house arrest. Shenju was poisoned, lingered on the sickbed, and ignored the government. He entered and exited her court in a grand manner, and withdrew from the palace people whenever he came. Inside and outside the court, no one dared to speak. Everyone knows that he is Xie Wei's right-hand man. When Xie Wei slaughtered half of the palace, he led his troops to guard the palace gates to prevent anyone from escaping. When Xie Wei beheaded the 9 clans of the Xiao family, it was he who led the people to break open the closed palace doors and arrest men, women, and children. Now, he is standing outside her palace gate with the former emperor Xie Wei. Shen Zhu has died, leaving an edict ordering her to listen to the government. However, the prince who succeeded from the clan had not yet ascended the throne, and on the way to Beijing, he was cut off by the rebellious Tianjiao rebels and hung at the city gate. Now, it's her turn. Jiang Xuning blinked slightly, and her long curly eyelashes cast a faint shadow under her eyelids, making her expression at the moment take a bit of the unpredictable desolation of the world. Yu Fangyan looked at her with some amazement. But she had already put down the incense pipe, covered the incense burner, took the boxy brocade box on the table, and opened it. Inside is the heirloom jade seal, and a letter that she wrote an hour ago and stamped with a decree. Yi's Hilly wrote that she volunteered to be martyred for the first emperor, and asked the prince and Prince Xie Wei Kuang to support Shiji, assist the government, and elect a virtuous monarch to succeed to the throne. Jiang Xuning suddenly raised her head and glanced out the window. At some point, the snow had stopped after falling all night. The dazzling sunlight peeked through the gloomy clouds and shone into the windows of the gloomy court, casting a bright light. She murmured, "If you knew that it was the end of today, why bother to camp and camp? It is better to go on a journey of thousands of miles, see the thousands of miles of rivers and mountains, and go when I am a free bird. In this life, after all, I just strayed into the palace wall, and the prosperity was a cocoon." Yu Fangyan was silent. Jiang Xuning asked, "Fangyan, if you are given a chance to choose, will you still come?" Yu Fangyan is the strangest one among all the people Jiang Xuning has ever known. She was originally a concubine of the Bafo, clumsy and pitiful. Once she fell into the water, she changed her temperament greatly, and since then she has shown up, become rich in business, issue invoices, and establish chambers of commerce, and has become the leading businessman in Zhongning Mansion in just a few years. It's not an exaggeration to call her Yu Bangheng. It's just that she was unlucky. In this battle between the court and the court, she first stood on the wrong team, and later, although she also surrendered to Xie Wei, she has also been guarded against these days and placed under house arrest in this palace. The two were so miserable that they became confidants who didn't talk about anything. Jiang Xuning listened to her talk about her self-made experience, many of which were novel, and she also heard complaints about the overseas Yu-Gi-Oh countries she went to when she was doing business, and even the steam engine did not appear. What a steam engine is, Jiang Xuning doesn't know. But Yu Fangyan always said that she was not from here, but from a faraway place that she could not go back to. She also said that there was a huge secret in the previous dynasty, and if it was known, no one with a little brain would make a mistake in this battle. It's just a pity that she knew it too late. Yu Fangyan sighed faintly and smiled bitterly. In this era when birds don't and are angry, whoever likes to wear it wears it. Jiang Xuning hadn't heard such vulgar words for a long time, and she was in a trance, but she remembered the time, and suddenly shouted, "Lord Xie!" The Vermilion Palace walls are covered with snow. Outside the palace gate, the black pressed a crowd of people. Yan Lin pressed the sword on the side. The man at the head stood upright, but when he heard the words, he did not answer. Jiang Xuning knew he could hear it. This is the most scheming person in the entire Great Cotter dynasty. The skin of a saint, the heart of a devil. How many people respected, valued, and admired him. But I don't know that under this noble appearance like a breeze in a bright moon, there is a heart full of anger and murder. Under the sword of Shang Fang given by the Son of Heaven, it is stained with the blood of the royal family, and the mote is red. In the hands of Fukin holding the pen, the lives of the Xiao family are tightly linked, and the corpses of those implicated are piled up like a mountain. This is the only one she can't please with all her might. You killed the royal family, punished the Xiao clan, and destroyed the heavenly sect. You are the one who holds the authority and also holds my life. It stands to reason that I am not qualified to talk to you about conditions. Zhang Xunning's eyes suddenly fell a tear and burned it on the back of her hand. In my life, I have used many people, but if you calculate carefully, I lost Yan Lin, and Yan Lin also took revenge on me. I used Xiao Dingfei and Zhou Yinzi, and they also borrowed me to take the position. I calculated Shenju, and now I will be martyred for him and go to Huangquan together. I don't owe them. The fate of a lifetime of ups and downs has passed like this. The dagger was in her sleeve. She gently pulled it out, and the cold light flickered on the blade, reflecting the gorgeous golden step on her eyes and sideburns. Zhang Xunning's body trembled, her voice trembled, and her eyes were full of tears, but she was not qualified to cry. She only said word by word, crying blood, but there is only one person, who has been upright all his life, and who is strict in governing the law, and I coerced him to lead him astray and tarnish his reputation for half a lifetime. He is a good official. I sincerely hope that Lord Xie will take care of the grace of Xuanning to feed you blood on the way to Beijing back then, exchange my life for his life, and let him live. Who would have thought that the Queen Mother, who seems to have no heart and is cold, will one day exchange her life for a mere criminal servant? Is it because she has no heart, or is it that others have failed to warm this heart? The man outside the palace gate stood still for a long time. After a long time, I heard the bland word, yes. It's a nice sound. It's like a long time ago. Zhang Xuanning smiled with relief and resolutely raised her hand. Poof! When the sharp dagger cut through the blood veins on the slender neck, it was a sound like cracking paper, accompanied by the sound of someone's long sword falling to the ground outside the palace gate. She also fell. The delicate golden step slammed to the ground, and the deep ruby encrusted on it shattered and splattered. The warm blood, along the steps, slowly soaked on the cold ground, like the shallow stream that she used to play with her bare feet when she was young. Straight into the palace wall, prosperous as a cocoon. This cunning palace finally became a tomb that swallowed her bones and buried her life. The sun came out of the window and shone on the snow, little by little, and slowly melted in the end. Asterisk. It's been a long dream, and the cause and effect in the dream are all chaotic, only the feeling when the blade passes through the neck is extremely clear. It hurts. Zhang Xuanning thought that she had known that she should choose a painless way to die. Ahem. Something seemed to press on her chest in the dream, making her breathless, so she coughed and finally opened her eyes with great difficulty. However, this look frightened. She lay on a messy couch, or rather, between two men. Close at hand, was the face of a handsome and elegant young man, almost intersecting with her breath, and even raised a hand to encircle her with a big grin. Zhang Xuanning's scalp was fried. This scene had to make her think that after Yan Lin returned to the court, she was placed under house arrest, and she always stepped into her palace quietly, so that she couldn't even sleep. She shook the man's hand away, rolled over, and got up from the couch. The young man opened his eyes in a drunken dream, but he was surprised that she behaved like this, only half sat up, and reached out to pull her. Brother Zhang, let's continue to sleep. Presumptuous. After all, he is a person who has been a queen and even commanded hundreds of officials, Jiang Xuning heard him speak disrespectfully, and saw that he was behaving dissolutely, and completely subconsciously slapped him in the face. Smack! This sound was so loud that it finally alarmed the young man in the black robe who was sleeping soundly with a sword on the other side of the soft couch. When he opened his eyes, he had long eyebrows, a straight nose and thin lips, and he had a sharp spirit. When I saw this scene, I was dazed for a moment, but then I caught a glimpse of the messy robe of the young man in gorgeous clothes, the 5 reddish fingerprints on the right cheek, and Jiang Xuning's shocked and angry face. With a bang, the young man reacted, instantly stepped in front of Jiang Xuning, drew his sword out of the sheath, and the tip of the sword pressed against the young man's neck. His face, which was still green, was covered with frost. He asked in a cold voice, "What did you do to her?" The young man was surprised that he dared to draw his sword at himself so impulsively, and the other was aggrieved and innocent, so he couldn't help but cover his cheeks. "What can I do?" The young man's brows furrowed, and he looked at him with suspicion. "Ben Wang." Jiang Xuning was suddenly stunned. It was only at this time that she realized that she was smelling the smell of wine, and found that she was wearing a green robe with silver thread embroidered bamboo patterns, dressed as a teenager, and there was a hot pain on the palm of the hand that had just beaten someone. Woman dressed as a man. Not in a dream. And the face of the young man who was pointed at by the sword, and the figure of the young man who stood in front of her, finally gradually surfaced from her memory. One was Shen Zhu, the king of Linzi who later became the emperor, and the other was the little Marquis Yan Lin, who later became a rebellious minister. Is this the rebirth that Yu Fangyan often talks about? She was cautious in her previous life, coaxing the men to turn around, and at the beginning of this life, she slapped the future emperor. Is it too late to kneel down and apologize now?